Hello and welcome into the PHNX Cardinals Podcast, live from Four Peaks in Tempe here in Arizona, brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook. Be sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star wherever you get your podcast. Johnny Venerable, Bo Brock, we're hanging out at Four Peaks. Come hang out. Let's talk some Cardinal football, Bo Brock, and boy, oh boy, is there much to discuss.
Yeah, it's the Sean Payton interview eve tonight for the Arizona Cardinals. Just think about it. Just miles from here in Tempe. They're at the facility. They're hanging their stockings right there for Sean Payton. They're getting the Four Peaks chicken tendies and the kilt lifter beers out for old Sean Payton claws to come in and presumably have an interview about coaching this team next year, but there's absolutely zero traction from any betting sites. The sharps don't think that anything's going to happen, and all the insiders don't believe that there's any traction for Sean Payton to coach in 2023.
I've never seen anything like it. On the eve of the biggest interview, I would say, dating back to when Peyton Manning came to the Valley in 2012 before inevitably signing with the Denver Broncos. On the eve of that, the odds of Sean Payton becoming the head coach have gone down on DraftKings. They were roughly plus 300, maybe plus 250 within the last 24 hours. They have gone down significantly to plus 750. You've got Albert Breer, you've got Rap Sheet, you've got Tom Pelissero, Mark Galafaro of NFL Network,
You're
NFL.com.
just making up names now.
We're going to mix and match. But the messaging stays the same. Everybody assumes Sean Payton is going back to Fox.
Zach Galifianakis, Steve Buscemi, I don't know.
Why would Sean Payton, why would the Cardinals invite him here and go through the dog and pony show if there wasn't an opportunity to make a deal? We have heard, Bo Brock, the Denver Broncos, according to Benjamin Albright.
Hold on. I'm not ready for this laugh right now.
What?
I'm not ready to just belly laugh at who the Broncos are now in bed with as far as coaching their team next year.
Well, I'm just saying it's dead and buried, it sounds like, with Sean Payton. It's not going to happen. Whereas that's stark contrast from 3 to 4 days ago when you've got washed-ass Russell Wilson calling Sean Payton directly. He had an interview, that being with Sean Payton, with Carolina. That lasted multiple hours. They're pivoting to Frank Wright. Now it's the only thing that's left between Sean Payton and return to Fox is a get-together with Michael Bidwill and Monti Ossenfort. If it's dead and buried, why even have that? What are they doing? There he is.
The GM, he's in the conversation. It's the weirdest kind of just decline. I mean, Sean Payton was the front runner as far as his fan base is concerned. They got a little scared off by the sticker price on Sean Payton, and they haven't gotten back, right? Yeah. They thought that he was a shoo-in to become the next head coach of the Denver Broncos, and ever since then, I feel like this fan base, at least, the organizations that also had coaching vacancies had pivoted. And did they just fall in love with other candidates, or was the asking price too high for Sean Payton, or somewhere in between? Because that's boring. Somewhere in between is boring. I wanted either or.
Yeah, it sounds like, per multiple reports, that teams have balked at not only Sean Payton's ass, but the New Orleans Saints. And listen, Sean Payton, whether he's a coach next year, he goes to Fox, he's going to be a wealthy person. I think the individual, the franchise that looks the worst amongst all of this is the New Orleans Saints. The Saints, who have seen a template by the Cardinals, among other teams. Bruce Arians went for a late day 3 pick.
Yeah.
You do right by the head coach that had success for you. Sean Payton has made it clear he's not coming back to New Orleans to take Dennis Allen's job. So for the Saints to come out, Mickey Loomis, and have the goal to say, we want multiple ones, we want a 1 and multiple 2s, and everybody's like, bull fucking shit, you will. We're trying to expedite a rebuild. Sean Payton's a great coach. He can't come here and manufacture talent. We need our draft compensation. And now you've got everybody involved with the Saints carrying the water for ownership, saying, oh, man, this may not work out. That's really too bad. We're going to have to go through all this all next year. No shit you are. You guys overplayed your hand, and teams, you know what they're saying? I'm going to pass, because the longer we get away from the end of the season, the easier it is for teams to talk themselves out of Sean. As great as he is, I can say Dan Quinn, elite defensive coordinator this year. I can say DeMeco Ryan, ass kicker. I can look at Frank Wright. He's had success in the NFL. Brian Flores, who we're a big fan of, he was in the NFL coaching this year under Mike Tomlin. The longer Sean Payton is out of coaching, and it sounds like he'll be at least another year out if he doesn't take the Cardinal job, I think this is closely mirroring what went on with John Gruden.
Right. Well, does this kind of put you in a position where the Arizona Cardinals, they have the ability to say no, but they need to seriously look at what the future looks like with Sean Payton as their head coach? Because I think that what we've just outlined here, as far as the Denver Broncos and the chaos that's ensued over the last 48 hours as far as who they might be targeting at the head coaching position, and it doesn't seem like it's Sean Payton. Carolina doesn't seem to be in the conversation. Houston, Colin Cowherd just absolutely just eviscerated them by throwing shade on them that this organization couldn't even do a Zoom meeting correctly. Right. They looked dysfunctional on Zoom, and you would only assume that Sean Payton's had one meeting via Zoom, and that's with Houston. So they're out of the running. When you look at the teams that are in this thing, the Arizona Cardinals, are they the standalone as far as one team vying for Sean Payton's services at this point? And when you look at the future of this team or being able to expedite a rebuild, sure, it's nice to have draft capital to do that. And you're going to have to part ways with some sort of draft capital.
Yeah.
But I still believe I'm still not going to get out of my own way here and say that he's not their best option. I think he is.
And I think fans, even though the fan base, I would say to some extent, have soured on Sean Payton because we're excited about the trajectory of the Cardinals. You bring in an external GM that's well-respected. You steal one of the top college scouting prospects or personnel guys from the Detroit Lions. Yeah. You're going all in with externals. You're doing everything that we ask. So if you don't get Sean Payton, it's not the end-all, be-all. With that being said, Sean Payton, I would argue, makes you a contender immediately in the NFC. Mm-hmm. He allows you to elevate the career of Kyler Murray. And, with all due respect to Dan Quinn and Brian Flores, they don't have that same pedigree. They can't come in and immediately make Kyler Murray work again to the highest capacity. You're going to be reliant on an offensive coordinator to be determined, TBD. So, again, I don't want to get lost on the fact that you got to pay him a pretty penny and you got to give up compensation to the point where you don't want Sean Payton. However, when you've got media outlets reporting, Bo, that it's basically a lock, he goes back to Fox, or it's looking that way before he even interviews with the Cardinals, that tells me there's some disrespect there, that this is not taken seriously. But then you've got Benjamin Albright, who kind of counters back at that, saying that Sean is going to have to convince the Cardinals. Who would have thought that there'd be an opportunity back when we were talking about this in November, that Sean Payton was going to have to come to Glendale, come to Tempe, and go up to Michael Bidwill and say, let me convince you why I'm the guy for the job.
Well, I thought we were going to be talking about how Michael Bidwill and Monti Ossenfort, the Cardinals' new GM, were going to have to, how they were going to persuade Sean Payton.
Yeah.
But then, I see Albright, who's dialed into this thing, probably more so than most insiders, and he's saying that Sean has to try to get to sway Michael Bidwill and Monty. That's shocking to me.
Isn't that crazy?
But here's how things get simplified, right? The asking price for the Saints needs to drop significantly, and then you find a better salary, right? Yeah. Are those the 2 points of contention? Is that what is keeping Sean Payton from being on the sidelines next year, or is it just, hey, I'm going to just, unless somebody overwhelms me, unless somebody completely just changes my mind on what this organization is about for what I already kind of had preconceived notions about going into this, of the 5 vacancies, I'm probably just going to go back to Fox. That's my safety net.
It's not a good look for a couple different reasons, that you've got the media carrying your water that you wanted either the LA job, one of the 2 LA jobs, or you wanted the Dallas job. So how are the Broncos supposed to take that? How are the Cardinals supposed to take that? And then supposedly you're putting together this all-star staff that includes defensive savant Vic Fangio, which, by the way, the Miami Dolphins could hire him at any moment to become their new DC. So is that even on the table, Sean? Are you just going to these interviews and you're trying to be courted or swayed, or you putting your feet up? I wonder if there's some humility with Sean Payton tomorrow when he gets to the desert. All this has come out. It's not a great look, right? You've got Benjamin Albright, among others, saying the teams have kind of soured on this process, right? There are other quality candidates to be had. So I wonder if this is telegraphed. Let's go to that angle for a second, Bo Brock, that maybe this was always Michael Bidwill's plan. Go out and see what kind of offers you can get,
right?
The compensation. You do us last. We'll come in last, and we'll have a meeting of the minds. Let us get a GM. Let us get some personnel people. We'll prioritize that. You prioritize other teams, and then toward the end of January, we'll reconvene. Is there a possibility
we'll
that's
be the
happening?
Cleanup hitter, right? We'll knock it in. Yeah, we'll knock you in, and we'll get everybody home safely and lots of runs on the board. Yeah, maybe. I mean, that seems like that would be the smartest play, right? It never made sense to be the first to talk to him, because you never kind of got this sense of urgency for Payton. He's like, oh, well, I'm just going to make the decision right off. Whoever I talk to first and they blow me away, I'm going to sign on the dotted line.
Yeah.
You just never got that he was going to turn this into a process the entire coach hiring process has evolved this offseason. I mean, you went through the past hirings for the Arizona Cardinals, and even Bruce Arians, it felt like it took an eternity, right? There's part of me
January
that's
8th.
Yeah, there's part of me that still felt like we were waiting for that hire to happen. And like now we're sitting here and it's January 25th. It's unbelievable. But I still hope that there is a part of the Arizona Cardinals organization, and especially the decision makers, and Michael Bidwill and Monti Ossenfort, that want to make this hire.
Yeah.
Because it would be the best way forward for the organization with their head coaching spot. I did see in the chat, you guys are killing it today. Mickey Loomis has joined us in the chat. And he said, we'll take, you can have Sean Payton just for the asking price of the third overall pick. I think we can probably hold off on that one. What else you got, Mickey? You want to negotiate? We'll do that for you right here.
Can I interest you in a Rondell Moore and maybe a bag of balls, Mickey Loomis? Hey, Mickey Loomis, nice leverage. Not. Hey, Mickey Loomis, counting your draft picks before you acquired them, that's a great play. Other teams have moved on. Man, if Michael Bidwill were to pull this off, I think the perception of Michael Bidwill would have taken the ultimate 180 from the end of the season to now. You let go of Cliff Kingsbury. You eat the contract that he is Steve Keim, right? You say all the right things in the opening presser, even though you've got media saying co-GMs and Vance Joseph and blah, blah, blah. And what does he do? He's gone external. He's about to go external again. This would be a monumental, I would say, occurrence for the state of Arizona sports. If you were to lure Sean Payton in here and swoop in, you're paying probably 75 cents on the dollar when everybody thought Sean Payton would have all these suitors. And then there's the Cardinals waiting in the wing. You think about, Bo, the teams that he was connected to, that he showed interest in back in October and November when we got those reports. Who was it? It was the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
It was the LA Rams / the LA Chargers, and it was the Arizona Cardinals.
Correct.
And there's one team remaining, and it's the team that's made the most sense all along. So everybody wanting to sell their stock on DraftKings. Sean Payton plus 750. Hang on a second. Just take a beat. We're not out of this yet.
So is smart money there, right? Is that there's some value there, right?
Well,
do you believe that? I mean, the fact that they haven't had the conversation, I think this is the peak chaos of the coaching carousel to 2023, right?
I love it.
It can't get any crazier than this because when you look at it too, they have set themselves up as far as the conversations that they've had and just connecting the dots through reports and just kind of watching how things have played out. The candidates, the teams they're associated with, the timelines, the interviews. I mean, the Arizona Cardinals, if they say, it was great to meet with you, Sean. Thank you so much for coming out to Arizona and talking with us. But I think we're going to go in a different direction, that they have some really, really solid candidates that aren't going to be that they're going to be at the forefront of to talk and sign to.
Yeah.
Sign to a deal. I mean, because if you look at Carolina, Frank Reich has emerged there, as you said earlier, right? You got Frank there. Steve Wilkes. You've got Denver, who's trying to pivot. We're hearing David Shaw, the former Stanford coach.
We can't wait to laugh at the Denver Broncos
David
hire.
Shaw, they're trying to save this thing as far as, reports of D'Amico Ryans could still potentially be in play there. And then you've got Dan Quinn, obviously, in that conversation. You've got Houston, who I think is a heavy favorite for D'Amico Ryans. You heard some interesting stuff from our guy Zach at DMVR as far as just how entrenched he is with that organization. And it's beyond, it transcends actually Texans football. His wife is from Houston, so there's lots of things there that
he spends his off seasons in Houston.
Right.
D'Amico Ryans, if he gets offered that job,
right,
is going to take that job. And I think anybody who's holding out hope that D'Amico Ryans could end up in Arizona, I'm going to tell you right now, that's dead and buried. We've been telling you that for a couple of days. It wasn't meant to be.
Right.
They couldn't get the interview in.
And then you've got Indy, which is a complete just three-ring circus. I mean, they've got Jeff Saturday for a second interview. They love Raheem Morris. They're just barking up trees that the Arizona Cardinals have no business with. So the Arizona Cardinals are sitting here where they're going to have a conversation with Sean Payton, which we've all been waiting for. And even though so many of us have soured on him, you've got Brian Flores with his ties to the new GM, and of course Michael Bidwill loves him, and Adrian Wilson reportedly loves him. And then you've got Dan Quinn, who just wined and dined last night.
He's still here, by the way. It sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty deep list of very impressive candidates beyond Sean Payton.
It's the A-listers, and we wanted them to be involved with this group. And speaking of this group, I mentioned you can get the odds right now on DraftKings. We're going to talk about the odds and the ever-changing coaching carousel. But right now, I want to remind everybody, DraftKings is where you want to be. We got 4 NFL teams remaining. 2 conference championship games, and only a few more shots to win big on DraftKings with the playoffs. And with DraftKings Sportsbook app, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, we're counting down to Super Bowl 57, and new customers, all you got to do, lay $5 down, slam that promo code PHNX, get $200 in free bets instantly. Take a 5 spot, throw it on any game this weekend. You don't even have to win, not the spread, not the money line, any game. If you're a new customer, PHNX promo code, you get $200 in free bets. Right now on the DraftKings Sportsbook app, it's never been easier to sign up. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. Both see those show notes for it. Details.
If the Arizona Cardinals are smart, they bring Sean Payton here to Four Peaks for their meeting. I had a delicious chicken beer bread today for my meal. I had the sweet potato fries, had a wow wheat. It was unbelievable, and it's tough to beat. You bring Sean Payton here to kind of figure out a little history about the great state 48 and its best brewery, Four Peaks. I think that you're going to put him in a position, maybe get a couple kilt lifters in him. And maybe his asking price comes down a little bit. Maybe he's feeling really good and ready to maybe make a little sweetheart deal with the Arizona Cardinals. But one thing you could do is get a sweetheart deal coming here to Four Peaks. Get yourself some great beer, some great food. I know our entire staff had the chicken tendies here. They think they're electric, but the menu is beyond great. So many fantastic. Emma's showing me a chicken strip right now, almost threatening me. Like, yeah, this is it right here. She's going to put it up in front of the camera, and you're going to see just unbelievable beer-breaded chicken strip it just goes hard. It's delicious. You can get it with the fries. You can get it with whatever you want, maybe a side salad. You get the basket, or you can get whatever you want. You can get a poke bowl here. You can get a turkey club. The Italian beef beer bread's unreal. And then, like I said, all the beers. It'd be tough to find. You got everything on tap. They got all the bourbon barrels in the back here, which are unreal, where they bourbon age some of these beers, and they're just so smooth. Get yourself a couple of those, and you're having a great night. Come and join us at our last Wednesday. Come down right now and get yourself a great meal and some beer and have some great vibes and talk to some really educated sports fans about who the next Cardinals head coach could be, or the Suns' winning streak, or the Coyotes, and for whatever reason they keep winning hockey games.
Dan Quinn, I think at some point it's going to be at Four Peaks. I don't know that for a fact. I may just have made that up. But eventually, if he gets this job, I guarantee he's going to be out at Four Peaks having a good time here in Tempe. Let's talk about Dan Quinn.
Okay.
Because I think there is a freight train from hell, and he's a bald man from the Dallas metro area. Dan Quinn right now visiting with Michael Bidwill and company, CBS Sports, saying there is momentum potentially that he could be the Cardinals. Don't throw up. 100 on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. We still got our guy, Brian, at plus 115. But you know Michael Bidwill. He loves men. Rod Graves, Steve Keim, Ken Wisenhunt, right? Cliff Kingsbury's the only outlier there. He could come in here, Bo. I'm going to tell you right now, there are worse things in life than to have Will Anderson, a.k.a. Micah Parsons 2.0, and Dan Quinn ready to beat some ass from Kyle Shanahan and Pete Carroll, his 2 former head coaches / coordinators. They don't want to see Dan Quinn in the NFC West. I can tell you right now, Dan Quinn, if he were to take this job, number one, it would give legitimacy to the franchise. Dan's got options. Dan's in Denver. They want him back for a second interview in Indianapolis. Albright and company saying that he would be a tremendous fit here. Think about the deep personnel with Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins. If you want to get the most out of the players that you've drafted in the first round, I know you don't love Dan Quinn,
right,
but I'm trying to sell Bo Brock on the idea that there may not be a perfect candidate outside of Sean Payton, and he comes with his own set of caveats.
Mm-hmm.
I'm warming up to the DQ. Give me a little bit of DQ soft.
I've friend zoned him so far. I don't love him. I don't. I know that he's good. I know he's a solid candidate. I understand why he's getting all these interviews. I understand why he's getting all these second interviews and why he's a very intriguing candidate for all 5 of the vacancies. I absolutely agree with it. What he was able to do and finally kind of break through the glass ceiling for the Atlanta Falcons and get, Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and those talented rosters, deep into the playoffs, including a Super Bowl appearance. I get all that. That's fantastic. But then you look at how his tenure ended in Atlanta in post 28-3. The collapse in the Super Bowl, it wasn't all that impressive. They became parodies of themselves. They couldn't hold leads. They blew leads on a regular basis, leads of 17 points. Of course, the 25-point lead they blew in the Super Bowl. They blew a 20-point lead to the Dallas Cowboys. I think if you're going to get Dan Quinn, but this also goes with the other candidates here, including Brian Flores, even if you get into the conversation with D'Amico Ryans, that you have to find somebody on the offensive side of the football. You have to find somebody. You have to have the idea in your mind right now, because outside of Sean Payton, it's basically defensive guys. Who's your guy?
How about Dan Quinn once upon a time having the foresight to hire a legacy offensive coordinator to lead him in Atlanta? I would say when he got Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta, he put that staff together. I think he's got the foresight to know how to put together a staff. What was one of the biggest knocks on Steve Wilkes and especially Cliff Kingsbury? They didn't have contacts. That Steve Wilkes staff back in 2018 is one of the worst staffs in the history of this franchise. They had Court Vance Joe with money and with Steve Keim. Cliff couldn't build a staff. They didn't have some coordinators. I think you feel good about relationships. We all talk about relationships, and Bruce Arians had relationships. That's why he could get the quality coordinators, and Byron Leftwich, you try to grow and develop him, and Todd Bowles and the veteran free agents. Dan has that. He has a lot of what you're asking for. But how about this? I got this from Twitter, from our guy Mike on Twitter. He goes, something's brewing. I'm going to put my conspiracy hat on.
Okay.
I got a call from the Cardinals ticket office today. The only times I've gotten calls from them is when something major happens, a la Cliff was fired, Monty was hired, now he got another phone call. Could we be 24 hours, 12 hours away from a notification that says Cardinals said, hey, Sean, thanks, but no thanks. We know this isn't genuine. We're going to roll with Dan Quinn. Do you think there could be a Dan Quinn announcement here in the next, 12 to 24 hours?
I hope it's not.
Wow, you're anti-Dan Quinn.
I'm holding out for. I've got my sights set higher.
Higher than the guy who took, I would argue, a middling group Dallas defensively. Higher than a guy who developed Michael Parsons.
Defensive Player of the Year. Look,
he developed Michael
you and
Parsons.
I could develop Michael Parsons. Hey, go out there and play football.
I don't think Vance
number
Joseph
11.
could.
Just go out there and play football. But here's the thing, and this is what the chat I think can get on board with. And as we just it's a frenzy right now. It's a coaching carousel frenzy, and it does feel like we're reaching a fever pitch to where something's going to happen soon. But the Arizona Cardinals are going to get a good coach. They're going to, they're going to get a good coach, and you need to smash the like button for that.
Yes.
Yes. No matter who it is, Sean Payton, Dan Quinn, Brian Flores, probably not D'Amico Ryans, but when you look at the odds-on favorites here, the Arizona Cardinals, they're going to have a very bright football mind. And to even further that, to your point about Steve Wilkes and Cliff Kingsbury, there were no built relationships with people within the NFL.
Yeah.
There was Cliff's staff was plug and play. He was in the meetings, but did he have any say in who was going to be on his coaching staff with him? No, unless there were guys with Texas Tech, and those guys were quickly fired, if you remember. So the Arizona Cardinals are going to bring in somebody with deep-seated relationships, whether it's Brian Flores, who was in New England for so long, and then he went down to Miami, and then he went up to one of the other, just consistently great franchises in Pittsburgh, a team that just went from 1-7 to over 500 to continue Mike Tomlin's unbelievable streak of being over 500. Learning from Tomlin, Brian Flores did that in 1 year. I mean, and Dan Quinn, what he's been able to do since he went back to the coordinator ranks after his tenure as a Falcons coach and kind of being there and pretty much, Mike McCarthy for the rest of his life needs to send a fruit basket to Dan Quinn and his family for saving his job.
You remember that first year with Mike? Yeah. They were terrible.
They were.
And they had to fire Mike Nolan, and he came in and saved the day. He does have a winning record as a head coach. He's 43-42. Not great, not terrible, and went to a Super Bowl and should have won the Super Bowl. Like, if you're Michael Bidwill, and again, we've talked about it ad nauseum, I brought it up. Go back, if you can stomach it. Watch the episode of Hard Knocks when Michael Bidwill basically stiff-arms Cliff Kingsbury and says, you guys are cutting corners in here. This is not a type ship. So these coaches that they're bringing in, he has a type.
Right.
They want somebody that's going to come in. They want somebody to come in. Enough with the GQ country club bullshit.
You're right.
They want a drill sergeant. For better or worse, and I know that turns a lot of people off, and players love Dan Quinn. Right? I don't know if players love Brian Flores. I would imagine they've got some good things to say about Dan Quinn is beloved. Michael Parsons said, I will go where you go. So you get the accountability, but they're beloved as well. And who's that remind you of? Bruce Arians. Where Bruce Arians would put his foot up your ass and tell you I love you and put his arm around you. And that's what this franchise is missing. And we've got to remember something. At the end of the day, yes, this team needs an offensive savant to develop Kyler Murray, but you can't force it if it's not there. And that's what they did with Cliff Kingsbury. They saw Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan and said, we got to have our own version of that. and it didn't work out. They got the great value version of it. And so are you going to go hire Mike Kafka? Supposedly Shane Steichen, or whatever his name is, with Philadelphia, tanked his Carolina Panther interview. That didn't go well. So he's not a front runner there. So it's just like, let's not force the issue. Let's get the best leader of men, regardless of the side of the football. And I would just say, like, right now, I would argue more talent for this team is on the defensive side. So get more out of it. That's one of the biggest indictments of Vance Joseph. You got Byron Murphy and Zach Allen and 2 first-round linebackers and these elite safeties, and your defense was what? 29th in the NFL? 30th in points per game?
Right.
That's not good enough, Vance.
No, it's not. But at the end of the day, I see Edwin in the chat saying, Quinn, great D coordinator. Does he have it as a head coach? I'm with you. I'm skeptical of that because of what I've seen from Quinn without an elite offensive coordinator like he had in Kyle Shanahan.
Legitimate concerns.
Right. And so you have to have that plan in place. But outside of Sean Payton, you're going to have that plan in place for all of these candidates. So it should excite you. But also let's keep in mind here, I mean, the most important player in that locker room and who you need to get back on the right track, I think Dan Quinn would have the right ability without being too harsh like a guy like Brian Flores, who's already, we've seen him handle a young quarterback, right? And that can be volatile to say the least. But Dan Quinn is more of a guy like the Bruce Arians, I'm gonna coach you hard and then I'm gonna hug you harder kind of mentality. So that is give me a little bit. It's a little appealing, but I've never seen Brian Flores with solid talent on his team coach.
Totally fine.
Because what I've seen him get more out of a less talented roster before, and that's what intrigues me more about Flores than Quinn. That's why I've got the edge on him. And you'll point to the Super Bowl and all that, but I think Dan Quinn in those Falcons teams were far more talented than what Brian Flores was dealing with in Miami. For the most part, it was a rebuild, and he was making chicken salad out of chicken shit for the most part.
Let's get Dan Quinn some talent if he becomes the new head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. We're going to talk plenty of draft. We're going to talk about where Benjamin Albright thinks things set right now. But first, I want to tell everybody about Underdog Fantasy. I am off of year-long fantasy. Get it away from me. I took Cam Akers high. That didn't work out. But guess what? With daily fantasy like Underdog Fantasy, I get to press the reset button every single day. What better time than now, ahead of the conference championships, to get signed up with Underdog Fantasy? Draft your team against 5 of your buddies, and the highest scoring squad for that night wins the cold, hard cash. Bo, you mentioned the Suns are hot. Draft up to 6 NBA players. No positional limits for the evening. Go head-to-head. We've got Thursday, Friday hoops ahead of this weekend's jam-packed football slate. It's been fantastic. I've been enjoying it. I hope to see the higher of Brock Purdy interceptions. Wouldn't mind seeing the higher of Joe Burrow's touchdowns this weekend. Definitely rooting for Philadelphia. I'm going to be doing that heavily on the Underdog Fantasy app. It's so easy, guys, to get started. All you got to do, go to UnderdogFantasy.com, download the app on your phone, use the promo code PHNX. Get this. Everybody's like, well, I don't know how much to deposit. What should I do? How do I get the free monies? Get this. Underdog is going to match your first deposit up to $100. You put in a $100, boom, you get out a $100 and bet with the free money. Go nuts with your buddies on Underdog Fantasy. No other app's giving you that kind of sweet deal, but you got to remember, use the promo code PHNX, Underdog Fantasy, Bo. Get in on the action today.
Another website you can kind of go nuts on, morefurniture.com. Now, I love our 4 Peaks out here, but we are sitting on benches. We need to maybe upgrade their bench setup here. Yeah. Maybe get them some nice dining room chairs, or maybe like a nice, like a pillow soft bench or something. We've seen those, right? But we've all been there before, where your wife or your significant other bought you a Frug with the directions are limited. Yeah. It's from Sweden. You don't know how to put it together, and it's a disaster. That's never going to happen at More Furniture. More Furniture, you got all the limited time doorbusters going on there that you got to check out. You got just under $2,000 if you spend it. You're going to get free delivery at More Furniture. You've got the white glove delivery, so you can say, do I want it over there? No, I want it over here. And they're not going to look at you. They might look at you wrong, but they're going to still do it for you. And they're going to get your pad set up, your living room, your dining room, you know, your office. Get some office furniture in there. Pimp out your office and get it looking sweet. Thanks to More Furniture. You got to check out all the great deals that they have going on in 2023. Morefurniture.com. I know the Arizona Cardinals are going to have a new head coach incoming that's likely going to need some nice new furniture for their new pad. they need to check it out as well. More Furniture, morfurniture.com. Check them out.
Everybody's softening on old DQ in the chat. Are you guys Culver's fans? What's going on here?
It's very persuasive.
Yeah, Dan Quinn, I would say polarizing along with Brian Flores. There's not a perfect candidate, and I'm going to admit that. And speaking of candidates, friends, and family, Benjamin Albright's predictions on Twitter this morning, somebody who's locked in, friend of the program. Here's what old Benji told us on Twitter today. I can't say Benji. Benjamin said,
he's not a dog.
We've got some momentum here with Flores. He feels like a fit here, but they'll talk to Payton, whose market has dried up. What I love about Benjamin is that he's been adamant that Payton's market has dried up because of Payton and the Saints, and then the national media is trying to spin it like, well, Sean's feeling out his options. I think Sean's options are limited to the desert or Fox Sports. And again, nothing wrong with that, but it'll be interesting to see. And then Dan Quinn, we feel like there's significant momentum there. He also heard, again, Shane Steichen, the interview didn't go as hoped, whatever that means. So they have pivoted. Carolina has pivoted. Frank Wright, who the Cardinals did interview last week, Bo, and, of course, our guy Steve Wilks, waiting in the wings. If Cardinal fans don't feel good about your situation, how'd you like to be picking from Steve Wilks and Frank Wright? Turns out that job isn't as hot as everybody told us. Everybody told us the Houston job and the Carolina job and whatever the hell's going on in Indianapolis. These are great jobs. The fuck they are. Nobody wants these jobs. You want to hire Frank Wright, milquetoast, as your next head coach? Right. So that was the first half, Bo. Here's the second half.
Okay.
So here's the second half on the predictions for Benjamin Albright on Twitter. So he's doubling down here. He's saying Gannon or Ryans in Houston, while Denver is in on Ryans. Houston may appeal more. And then Denver, the Denver Broncos are interesting, Bo. And we talked about this off air. What if the Cardinals hire Dan Quinn? What if Houston gets DeMeco Ryans? What if Sean Payton goes back to Fox? David Shaw? That is a nightmare reality for our friends at DMVR. And I like David Shaw, the coach. 14 wins in 4 years. This guy's looking at you, a David Shaw fan? Saul Bookman? No, of course not. And then we've got Indy. They want Jeff Saturday, meaning the owner wants Jeff Saturday.
Insane.
So if the owner wants Jeff Saturday,
you've got Irsay. They want Saturday. The front office doesn't. Who wins? What an absolute just cluster there in Indy.
Doesn't this make you feel better about the Cardinals?
No, we've never wavered on what this opportunity looks like to candidates, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of, I think, misinformation and people, outsiders trying to look in that didn't realize that post Steve Keim, post Cliff Kingsbury, that this is going to be an appealing job.
Yes.
And nobody believed that because they what they know about the Arizona Cardinals is no longer the truth. Yeah. And they have to continue to move forward, and they can do that with one of the best options right now in the 2023 coaching market. Now, let's put all the cards on the table.
Yeah.
Sean Payton interviews tomorrow.
Yep.
If the asking price comes down to a reasonable asking price, salary, compensation from the Saints or to the Saints, and then you're looking at Dan Quinn, Brian Flores, Sean Payton. Who are you hiring?
Sean Payton.
Okay, thank you.
It's Sean Payton, 1A, 1B,
I like that we
1C.
did like an hour worth of show, and we finally got to the resolution that we got to in November.
Does Sean Payton want to coach in 2023? If he does, and he's not going to flake out in 2 years, and we had to give up premium draft capital to get him here, I have to be convinced of Michael Bidwill that I'm not going to get, not Bruce Arian, that's not the right term because he helped save this franchise. Mm-hmm. But, I need Sean Payton for at minimum 5 to 7 years. I need Sean Payton. If Sean Payton's pursuing a Hall of Fame gold jacket, I want him to be convinced that he can come here and help me win a championship for the first time in my franchise. It's not going to be a perfect situation, Sean. You're going to come here, and you're going to have to fix some things, and you're going to have to compete against 3 other elite head coaches in the NFC West. Are you ready for that, or are you wish-washy? If you're wishy-washy, Bo, then I'm not interested.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You want any coach that comes here all in investing in the Arizona Cardinals because the Arizona Cardinals are the sun set on the previous tenure, right? Yeah. It's a new day for the Arizona Cardinals. Do you want to be a part of it? It's kind of a blank canvas. We've got some really, really intelligent football guys that we've brought in.
Right.
Do you want to join this and take this organization to heights that it hasn't reached before? Right? And that's consistently competing. That's getting this quarterback that we locked in through 2027 back on track. And you look at that, that's probably your target date, right? At the very least, 2027. So that's about, you're looking at 4 to 5 years, and that you want Sean Payton. I think he can do a lot of work during that time.
Yeah, it just, to me, if you can get to a point where Sean maybe has been humbled by all of this, if the Saints have been humbled, the Saints are just like, just give us your first next year, we'll move on. Everybody's happy. But if they come in there,
I don't think that's too rich.
No, if they come in here guns a-blazing and they're like, yeah, the offer is still Sean gets $25 to $30 million a year. We want all personnel control.
Right.
We want, your firstborn kid and multiple ones and twos. Remember what they were leaking out? It was like 2 1s and a 2 to get the No. How about
that was
none?
just the beat writers.
How about none?
Right.
If it's reasonable, he's number one. Who is your realistic, given that D'Amico looks like he's out of the picture, who is your realistic number 2 today?
Brian Flores.
Why is that? Over Dan Quinn.
And I thought I already talk through this. Why I like Brian Flores, because I think that Brian Flores did more with less in Miami than Dan Quinn did a solid job with the Falcons when he had a stacked deck.
Does it worry you that Dan Quinn's getting head coaching interviews and Flores outside of Arizona is not getting head coaching interviews?
Sure, but also I think that the guys that know Flores are sold on Flores, and that's fine with me. That's all I need.
What if you could get him to come and join the staff as a DC?
Love it.
Yeah. I mean, we're not talking about that enough because Brian's going to go there and be a DC somewhere.
Especially with Fangio and him trending towards South Beach and Miami. Like, you're saying, well, there's Sean Payton's DC. It's like, no, I think that there's more defensive coordinator talent to be had at this point than there, because there's so many vacancies with the for the offensive coordinator. But DC, it seems like there's a ton of talent out there.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we've already seen that Flores would have his old defensive backs coach from Miami potentially be his DC. His former DC's available if you want him as well. So there's options there. So I'm not that concerned. It just seems like if you go with the defensive guy, what are the names that you're throwing around for offensive coordinator? Because what I'm seeing for these openings, it seems like a ton of retreads with the Jets job.
Yeah.
Who went through and interviewed before Bill O'Brien locked up the Patriots job. That's got to be a huge concern for Cardinals fans if you go with the defensive guy. Now, Dan Quinn's coming from Dallas. He's got some ties there where they've been very impressive on the offensive side of the football. Is there somebody waiting in the wings there, working behind a Kellen Moore that's helping with the game planning and helping with the scheming?
I think that's the first place you look at a receiver coach, a quarterback coach, a running backs coach, somebody that, I mean, he's got, when you have these kind of interviews, you're going to be asked what your staff is going to look like. How are you going to build out your staff? The anomaly to that, the exception, I should say, was Cliff Kingsbury saying, I'm going to fix the offense by myself. I need help getting a defensive coordinator. And that's where Steve Keim and company came in, and they hired Vance Joseph, who had no pre-existing relationship with Cliff Kingsbury. That is dead and buried. The Cardinals, whomever comes here, whether it's Quinn or Flores or Sean Payton, is going to have an outline, a resume of who they want to bring on. And that's a good feeling. And I know we're sitting here, and it's almost the end of January, and none of these jobs are filled. Do you get the sense, Bo, because everybody's kind of slow playing this because a lot of candidates that they want to talk to are in the conference championships. They can't speak to them next week. It feels like the Cardinals contenders are not in that group. Flores is available now. You could hire him tomorrow.
Right.
Sean Payton's available now. You'd hire him tomorrow. Same with Dan Quinn. Could we see a reverse course of action where the Bidwills historically have been one of the last to the party? Could Michael Bidwill set the trend and be the first domino that falls here and hire a coach?
They played it well.
Yeah.
Which you very rarely can give credit to the Arizona Cardinals for. And you look at Denver, where they just completely misplayed this thing.
Yes.
And not to, I think Peyton played a role in that. Obviously, the Jim Harbaugh thing was weird. Like, Jim Harbaugh wanted to continually talk to them, and they're like, no, we want to interview more people and do our due diligence, right? But at the end of the day, when you look at who they're vying for and their timeline, it's like, what was the whole point then? Like, what was the whole point of firing Hackett right before the end of the season to get ahead of this, where you're probably going to be you're not going to be the first team probably to hire somebody. So unless it's David Shaw, which would be ridiculous, all of this, and you end up with a guy who basically was not forced to resign, but resigned because he wanted to resign with some sort of dignity after winning 14 games in 4 years at Stanford. So I think it's just Michael Bidwill it seems like he did exactly what we thought he should do in November. I'm not trying to puff our chest out and say, hey,
no, do it. Give us credit.
He played his cards so close to his chest, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he was so tight with he tightened his inner circle. He relied on people he trusted, and it wasn't the same people that he to a fault, trusted for so long in Steve Keiman and other people who've been in this organization for too long. And he played it tight and he played it right? And as far as how he went about this process, he could land, the top candidate as far as how interviews go tomorrow for a price that people didn't expect, or you could get one of these top coordinators that are available.
I like Derek John S.'s comment in the chat saying that the new GM in Arizona is stronger than Denver's. You have to hitch your wagon.
Not even close,
You have
right?
to hitch your wagon if you're Sean Payton or DeMeco Ryans or Dan Quinn or whomever, to a guy who hired Nathaniel Hackett, to a guy that traded for Russell Wilson, now one of the worst trades in NFL history, and a guy who, he took Patrick Surtain, but he made those comments like, well, franchise quarterbacks can be found every year. Number one corners, you got to, those are rare. Those are a rare commodity. Remember when he passed on Justin Fields and he came out and said that? I think there's a stench around the Broncos. We love our peeps at DNVR, but there was a report last night, Bo. I was texting you this morning.
Is this true?
Yes. It seems like it's true. I listened to the DNVR Broncos show earlier today, and they feel like there's some legitimacy to it. That the Broncos' new owner.
From Jeff Duncan, right?
Yeah. Jeff Duncan, who's a reporter in Denver, came out and basically said nonchalantly on radio that the Broncos' new owner held off interviews this week because he's out hunting. And he wants to come back and do them in person, but he's got to finish hunting first.
Yeah.
If that was Michael Bidwill, there would be picket signs in front of State Farm Stadium.
Well, there's the ownership stability, right? He's up in a deer stand, and he's trying to pick off some deer that he's been hunting for the last couple days.
Nice franchise.
Got a nice aroma around him.
Yeah.
Maybe some animal urine. I don't know. Maybe got the newest fatigues.
By the way, Jeff Duncan had to walk that back on Twitter.
Did.
He said, I didn't have it double sourced. My apologies. That sounds like it came from a candidate, and they said that to Jeff Duncan kind of nonchalant, and he ran with it. Why? I mean, something like that has to be true.
Yes, Duncan's kind of polarizing to me because he posted a picture of Michael Jordan, how many shots he's missed in his career. It's like, whoa, what are we doing here?
Is he comparing himself to Michael Jordan?
It's like sometimes even the greats miss shots, right? And it makes us better at the end of the day.
We've all had to take a beat off of Twitter. I've had to do it. You need to do it, Mr. Duncan. Take 48 hours off of the bird.
But if there's any truth to that, everything we've heard about Denver is why that they would be appealing to these candidates, because ownership stability.
Yeah.
And the guy's not even on the grid when they're making the most important decision for the franchise going forward after failing horribly.
But they have all this money, Bo. They have all this Walmart money that everybody keeps telling us about.
Nathaniel Hackett lasted 8 months or 10 months. I don't know. Not even a year.
Vance Joseph.
And you're up in a deer
Fangio,
stand. And
Nathaniel Hackett are their last three head coaches.
You're in camouflage and you're hunting a deer while you're trying to make the biggest decision.
Did Sean Payton tell them to fuck off?
They have deep pockets. That's it. That's all they have. They have deep pockets, and they've got John Elway winning a Super Bowl a long time ago.
They were tweeting about John Elway today, and it's just like Russell Wilson is poison.
Is that it? That's it, right? Is it Russell Wilson? Is he the most?
It has to be. Because their roster's fine. I mean, they don't have any picks, but like you were talking about, they were like celebrating like 2 touchdown games at the end of the year for Russell. Look, he's not washed, everybody. We did it. It was Nathaniel Hackett who was embarrassing us on Nickelodeon. The Cardinals are the only team that can come out of this and say, clean slate, new GM, new personnel guy. These guys are from X, Y, and Z. They have no ties to this roster. Do whatever you want. And I know people want to throw the Kyler Murray contract and that whole thing. If Sean Payton comes here and wants to get rid of Kyler Murray in 2 years, guess who's going to be gone? They're going to draft somebody else. And I'm not saying I'm advocating for that. I would think Kyler Murray if he comes back and is healthy, is a lure for a lot of these offensive coaches. But man, like Denver, George Patton's still around after a series of miscues. Houston has gone through 2 head coaches in 2 years. That GM is still around, right? The Carolina guy, he's still around after hiring Matt Rule. Yeah. Like, the Cardinals have a clean slate here, and not enough people are talking about that.
Brian, super chat, $2 super chat. So much, thanks so much. And Walmart employees don't last. Not a headline.
Oh man,
LOL. No, I mean, it's like, our owner might not. He's actually hunting right now, Sean. We could have maybe Fred, our Walmart greeter here at our Denver location, maybe conduct it. Do you mind?
Oh man.
Stability.
That's good stuff. So I'm
traded the farm for Russell Wilson.
I'm a Target
guy. Locked him in.
We like Target. We like our DQ soft serve.
It's easy, right? It's Target, it's Walmart, and then very low Kmart.
Walmart's lower than Kmart. I can't. No. The Maricopa Walmart is the bane of my existence. It's like, man, you would think we were still at the height of the pandemic. There's nothing on the shelves. right? It's
There's no
abysmal.
way. Kmart's are barely even around.
I would still get a Kmart over a Walmart.
No, you're
Maricopa.
crazy. You're crazy.
Producer Emma, you like Walmart? What's going on?
Hey, I'm a broke college student. Walmart
okay.
saves my day.
All
Their
right.
groceries are extra cheap. I get those chicken titties for.
I'm sorry.
on the
The what?
They're chicken titties.
Oh,
chicken
man.
breasts.
Okay.
They're-
all right.
On the low, Walmart, chef's kiss.
All right.
Fuck your Kmart.
Well,
Wow.
okay.
But,
Well,
hey,
times are tough here.
we're all Target stands, though, right?
We are,
Can
we
you
are.
at least agree on the Target there, Emma?
The dollar spot?
Target, I'm a little biased on simply because I worked at Target for 3 months.
Okay.
So I'm not the biggest fan of like the corporation side, but the store itself, chef's kiss, love the layout, love the way they do the
I'm
layout.
glad we were able to keep Emma longer than Target. We've had Emma here longer than the 3 months at the incumbency period at Target. So let's
After having to break down this team, though, at 4-13, we almost lost her back to Target.
We did, but you know what? We're casting a wide net here at PHNX.
Oh, yeah.
We're casting a very wide net.
No doubt about it. Oh, man. So, yeah, everybody's killing the chat in there. Edwin, I know that they had Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning has been the crutch for two.
Just like John Elway was a crutch.
He was a crutch in Indy for a long time, got them to the top of the mountain, and he was also able to do it on his way out, right off into the sunset, and helped John Elway save face for at least a few years. But Team Kirkland signature, that's Costco, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a Costco stan. I like it.
Yeah.
You just got to go in there throwing elbows
Right.
at the end of the day. The point of this is Michael Bidwill, for everybody who
Right.
wanted to say at the end of the season, and we were on the cliff, right? For lack of a better term, no pun intended, from pivoting for Michael Bidwill. We were going to give him every opportunity to make things right, but if he were to run it back and basically say, I signed these guys to these extensions, I'm going to see them through, kind of like what's happening with Brandon Staley and company, we would have been off that cliff. And a lot of people would have pointed fairly to Michael Bidwill and said, you are like your dad as a professional, as an owner, not the late, Bill Bidwill, the person. He just was not a good football owner. They were the laughingstock of the NFL. Michael has come in, and this is not a Michael Bidwill stan rant here, but I just want to put everything in context for some of the younger fans out there. He's come in, he's got the stadium built. He hired Ken Wisenhunt. They got to a Super Bowl. He hired Bruce Arians. They've had some success under him. Now it's time to take it up a notch, and he has done all the right things. He's pushed all the right buttons. If we are 72 hours away from a Sean Payton deal with Michael Bidwill, we will have parades in the streets here in Tempe behind Four Peaks.
Yeah, I saw somebody ask in the chat, is he Dennis Erickson 2.0, failed Sun Devils coach, guy who was all over the place, Miami, coached for the Niners, I believe, in the NFL. No, I don't get those vibes at all. I see somebody who's excited to get back in the game, isn't just kind of sign the next deal with whatever the next team is. He seems like he's just passionate about it. He seems like he's very reminiscent more of Bruce Arians than further than Dennis Erickson is, or Joe Gibbs for that matter, where he hasn't been away from the game for too long. He's stayed in. He's kind of kept up with the trends. When you hear him talk on Fox, when you hear him talk on Colin Cowherd, he's a guy that's a wealth of knowledge as far as the current game, schematically, offensively, and that excites you. I mean, so I'm not concerned that if they pay him what he's going to command, that he's going to be a bust and he's going to be a guy that's just going to mail it in to just collect the paycheck.
Let's turn the clocks back about 30 days. Does anybody remember December 31st? It was New Year's Eve. It was the Fiesta Bowl. Who was in town for the Fiesta Bowl? Sean Payton and his family to watch TCU in Michigan. Where was that at? That was at State Farm Stadium, right? And then Michael Bidwill gives my co-host here a little smirk when he asks about the opportunity of maybe interviewing Sean Payton just a few weeks later. And then everything gets quiet. And they let the media and these other teams take their best shot at Sean Payton. And everybody gets excited about the Broncos, and he's going to Carolina. And that's all fizzled out. And as we sit here at the end of January, tomorrow Sean Payton's going to be in Arizona with no remaining interviews left on his schedule. The media, the national media, has buried Sean Payton. He says he's going back to Fox. He's got too many options. He's going to wait out the LA jobs. This seems so telegraphed. It's obvious, right? It has to be telegraphed to some extent that there was a conversation off the record between Michael Bidwill and Sean Payton when he was here for the Fiesta Bowl.
Close. He would have been on his way to San Francisco soon after.
Yeah. Like, hey, let's connect at the end of January.
Yeah.
We've got genuine interest. Let me get some people in here that know what they're doing. Let's have a text chain going on. This interview.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. I was a week off on that.
I just feel like this interview is not a throwaway interview. The Cardinals, why would you put on a dog and pony show for a guy who's got his foot out the door going back to Fox? Michael Bidwill has played everything close to the chest. I got word from a buddy of mine who's tapped in, who said that Michael Bidwill is in the dark. No one can get a hold of him. That's got to make you feel really good if you're a Cardinal fan.
Yeah, and how you kind of see these odds fluctuating. I mean, how many times have they changed in the last 48 hours?
Yeah.
I mean, you had Brian Flores has stayed steady as the favorite, right, at around plus 115.
Yeah.
And then it was Sean Payton at like plus 250. Now he's down to plus 700, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And then D'Amico Ryans was up to 550. Vance Joseph's crypto stock, he continues to just plummet. And you've got guys like Dan Quinn who are rising up, right? And he goes from plus 1,600 to, according to our guy Saul, who got him at plus 1,200 to now he's plus 300. I believe he's the second best betting favorite for the Cardinals right now. So it's crazy. It's tough to get up to kind of keep up with. And you can read all the reports. You can get paralysis by overanalysis because it's crazy that all this conversation we're having and the Cardinals haven't had a true sit down with Sean Payton. Like if I'm Michael Bidwill, if I'm Monti Ossenfort, and I'm sitting with Sean Payton across from me, I say, look, if you want to come here and you believe in Kyler Murray and you think that we can expedite a rebuild and get back to where you were during the bulk of your Saints tenure and turn this franchise around and take it to new heights, then we need you to first don't talk to your ex any longer. No more conversations with Mickey Loomis and having respect for what he wants to do and he has to have a job to do. You have to keep in mind that this is a rebuild here. We need as many assets as possible. What are we talking here? What are we talking about? Your compensation, and what are we talking about? What the Saints are going to ask for to let you go?
I love the comment in the chat, and I apologize who put this out there, but you think Michael Bidwill ate all that money to hire Frank Wright? I mean, you're going to move off of Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim. You're going to eat those contracts. You're going to talk about casting a white net.
That was the same Vance Joseph conversation we had.
It's like, get the hell out of here with that. And it was the same, and we love the national media, but it was the same guys who were plugged in saying Vance is going to be the guy for this job, and they're going to hire co-GMs. I'm sorry. There's about a group of people right now batting about zero for the Arizona Cardinals and their predictions this offseason. So for anybody to tell us that this Sean Payton dream is dead just because there's rumored reports about him being out in Denver, so that's it, I'm sorry. Does this interview not mean anything? It must not, right? This is just kind of a cup of coffee flash in the pan thing. The Cardinals have Dan Quinn in-house today. That's a real legitimate candidate for this job, just like I believe Sean Payton is.
I see in the chat our guy Desert Swarm, caps lock on. What is the cutoff for compensation for Sean Payton? Johnny, what's your cutoff?
My cutoff would be...
Especially seeing how things have played out.
Yeah, no problem. I would say you can have one of our thirds this year, preferably the comp third at the end of the third round, and you can have our first-round pick next year. That is about as rich as I'm going to go. I think pick 35 is incredibly valuable. If they wanted that straight up, I'm fine with that. You have to understand with compensation, the way NFL teams look at it, a pick in the future is worth a devalued round down. So a first-round pick next year is the equivalent of a second-round pick this year. So pick 35, I'm sorry, that's about as good as you're going to get from anybody this year. You want pick 35 and a throwaway pick next year, I'm fine with that.
And the Saints are having a sober wake-up call today. I mean, they're realizing that if he doesn't sign with one of the 5 vacancies this year, as far as any leverage they had, it's gone come next year.
No. The longer you're out of the game, the less people want you. You know who's going to be in demand next year? All the hot coordinators and candidates that didn't get jobs this year. The D'Amico Ryans of next year, right? Hell, Dan Quinn may not get a job next year, and he'll run it back. So I just don't overplay your hand, New Orleans, because tomorrow, it seems like, is your last opportunity to get some real compensation for the coach that won you your only championship in franchise history. Do right by him. If Sean Payton wants this job, help him make it work with the franchise that wants to take him on.
Yeah, we're seeing some questions about DeAndre Hopkins as we talk about recouping some of that draft compensation that you would send to New Orleans in order to hire a guy like Sean Payton. Could you get it from DeAndre Hopkins? Albert Breer had a deep dive on the Monday Morning Quarterback today, kind of examining it. And, obviously at 31, he's not the wide receiver crop from last year that fetched a bunch of first-round picks. Like, he's not Devontae Adams. He's not Tyreek Hill. He's not A.J. Brown. He's not even Hollywood Brown for that matter because of his age and what he's making. But, Breer was saying day 2 pick, right? Wasn't he saying that?
Yeah, and there's a big difference between an early second and a late third.
Right.
To me, if you can't get at least a second for DeAndre Hopkins, then I'm passing on any trade. And the second round, as we know, goes into like the 60s.
Right.
It goes to like pick 62 to 63. If you can get a second round pick for DeAndre Hopkins, I'm going to have a conversation. Maybe throw in a 4th or a 5th. I'm not giving up.
Look at the
D-Hop
wide receiver crop that hits the market this season. I mean, you've got now until draft time, basically.
Yeah.
And you can pretty much, you'll see some takers. Second round pick would be a steal for a Baltimore for probably.
They don't have a second this year.
Well, that's convenient.
I know. And then and you think about New England now have put themselves in a tough corner with the hiring of Bill O'Brien. There will be takers, though.
Right. They're well. I mean, and you'll be able to find a pretty sweet deal. I don't think you're not going to get nothing in return for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins.
And Baltimore also has pick 22. So if there's a scenario you want to do a pick swap, and maybe you give Baltimore, one of your picks in D-Hop, and you're able to get pick 22, that's an option. The Cardinals traded, of course, with Hollywood Brown last year and Baltimore. They have the history. Anquan Bolden, once upon a time, went to Baltimore for a pair of thirds. So, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, to me, it really is just going to come down to what Monti Ossenfort and the new head coach want to do. But if they're building out for the next 5 to 10 years, if somebody gives you something of value, you have to consider it. But you cannot just give him away. We saw Dallas's passing game in the postseason, and I know a lot of people think, well, the Cardinals are going to be in the playoffs next year. We don't know. The NFC's garbage. Daniel Jones won a playoff game this year. Dallas couldn't move the football. They could have used Amari Cooper. They probably would have won that game. So I'm not in the business of helping other teams by giving away DeAndre Hopkins. But if it's a valuable pick, we can have a discussion.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Great stuff in the chat. As always, Bees saying he agrees with me on Dan Quinn. Great coordinator. Not a great head coach.
Let's end on this.
People are saying your jacket's fire.
Oh, thanks. This is from Homage. They sent it to me. I appreciate Homage, but I love GoPHNX.com and the PHNX merchandise locker. Homage? You paying homage to somebody?
Yeah.
Okay, let me put you on the spot here. If they hire Dan Quinn tonight and we do an emergency podcast or we do a show tomorrow, are you going to be disappointed? Are you going to be disappointed?
If they hire Dan Quinn tomorrow? Yeah.
So you're going to get on this show, and this coordinator that was a hot coordinator that led a top defense
because of who's still available. Because of who's still available.
You're going to know Sean Payton's not available by hiring Dan Quinn.
Okay.
So he's off, and then DeMeco Ryans is off.
Yeah, I would be disappointed, but it would be. But that doesn't make it's a bad hire.
Disappointed makes it a bad hire.
No, it doesn't. No.
Disappointing is Vance Joseph. Disappointing is
that's utterly disappointing.
Aaron Glenn. That's disappointing.
No, that's like I go into a dark room and don't come out for weeks disappointed.
That's clipping. Is disappointing.
Right. No, it's not. It's disappointing relative to who I'd be ecstatic about it that they hired.
That's disappointing that you're going to be disappointed. That disappoints me to hear you say that.
No, I'm not going to be a thief of your joy just because I'm not.
But when I talk all the time and Bo can't get excited about Dan Quinn, we got a problem.
It's just the needle just doesn't move for a guy like Dan Quinn for me. But he's fine. He's good.
We're better than good here at GoPHNX.com. Become a diehard. We've got so many events coming up. It's insane. We're going to be out at, hopefully, the Waste Management. We're going to be hanging at Super Bowl week. We're going to be at the Combine. My counterpart here is going to be at the Senior Bowl next week. Check out all the exclusive content, including from Howard Balzer, the guy who broke the news of Sean Payton coming to Arizona. Check him out. Promo code Howard at GoPHNX.com, our official beat reporter. He's going to have content coming up here in the next couple of weeks. You don't want to miss out. 90% of it is for free. Unlike many sites with the payroll, 90% of GoPHNX.com is where you want to be. Plus, a diehard membership gets you exclusive Discord. Come yell at Bo and I. Come pick up a fresh hat or tee for free when you become a diehard at the PHNX merchandise locker. We got 364 people in this chat. God bless you from the football gods. Please like this video. Subscribe to PHNX Sports if you have not done so already. We do this every single day. We're cranking out pods and live shows on the reg, and we're keeping it real with all due respect to everybody else in the Valley, PHNX is where it's at.
Bo's going to Senior Bowl next week.
That's right. That's right.
I'm going to be in the
So am I.
Right. There's Shane, too. Obviously Mobile, Alabama. We're going to see just the America's heartland down there.
Trey McBride.
Trey
Once upon
McBride,
a
yeah,
time.
that's where he was just a prospect and in the glimmer of the Cardinals' eye. And now he's an Arizona Cardinal having a strong finish to the season. But, we're going to have content coming from the Senior Bowl. And, look, in the press conference, I'm not going to tell Dan Quinn I'm disappointed. I think it's
Well, you're not going to be here. I'm going to take care of that. Bo's going to be in Mobile looking at a couple Mobile.
Yeah.
Mobile and Mobile looking at a couple, offensive guards, and I'm going to be talking to Dan Quinn.
That's right. It's probably best.
It is probably for the best. It's for the best that you subscribe to the PHNX Cardinals podcast wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much to Four Peaks here in Tempe. Come check them out. Your premier brewing company here in Arizona. We love them so much. We love all of you. Thank you for the countless, endless messages and support. We are back to put a bow on this week. Mañana, 4 p.m. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Why did I think tomorrow was Friday? Or
Tomorrow is Thursday.
Tomorrow's Thursday.
Yeah,
So we're
it's Sean Payton Day, folks.
I thought today was Thursday. It's not. I'm tired, but we're fired up. For Bo Brock, I'm Johnny Venerable. I almost pulled that off. See you, everybody. Thanks for